Episode 32, presented by sodastick.com. We've got training camp, crackheads, the Vancouver, Minnesota playoff series preview with Tom Reid's. This is episode 32 of Bardown Beauties. Let's go. As always, Bardown Beauties is presented by sodastick.com, where you can snag all the coolest gear for the Minnesota sports fan in your life. Hats, tees, and hoodies in original designs celebrating your favorite Minnesota sports moments. You'll find at sodastick.com. Use code Bardown Beauties at checkout for free shipping. Be a beaut with SodaStick. Hello, everybody. We are recording on opening day baseball today, so let's go Twins. Let's go Cards. Fred's repping his St. Louis squad. I've got the Twinkies going. Pretty exciting stuff, Fred. We got baseball back in addition to all the hockey talk.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, baseball is going to be really interesting this year. 60 games, and you go have like one bad losing streak, and you're out of the playoffs. It's going to be real fun.
Yeah, I'll leave the baseball talk to you. I mean, a little bit, right? I mean, I was born on the day the Twins clinched the pennant back in '87. So fun fact for all you guys, go Kirby Puckett, right? That's about the extent of my knowledge. Miss Alexis is busy working. Again, hashtag get Alexis out of waitressing if we can. So she will not be joining us, but Tom Reid is joining us later on in the segment. So be sure to stay tuned because hockey's here. I've got goosebumps. I don't know about you because it's coming back. Training camp 2.0 just wrapped up. Some interesting news kind of trickling out of there. Joel Eriksson Ek had left the scrimmage last Thursday early. It didn't appear that he got hurt, but I think he was because he wasn't at practice on Friday. And of course, coaches are being very vague on what exactly is going on with players. They just simply say unavailable. So that's all media has been told. He still will be traveling with the team to Edmonton, according to Dean Ebsen. But I think an injury to Eriksson Ek isn't exactly great for the Wild.
No, I mean, it's the geek line, right?
Yes.
You got to have everybody there. Well, they're not in the geek line anymore, but
I know. They're kind of mixing it around. I mean, they did put them together for a little bit during the scrimmage on Thursday, which was good to see. But I also am really digging this Greenway Stahl Fiala look. They played in the first scrimmage that the team had 2 Saturdays ago. And that one looked pretty, as I tweeted, spicy. It looked spicy, Fred.
Yeah, but Joel I like watching his game just because he's so annoying.
Yes.
He's so annoying to the other team, and he has just this blank, dumb look on his face when he like takes somebody into the corner to fish a puck out and really battle, and it just pisses people off. I just find that so funny, and he's such a integral part of like just back checking and everything. I love watching his game.
Oh, for sure. Well, and as his teammates will attest, and they say this all the time because we ask about it all the time, like, what is he doing or what is he saying on the ice that just pisses the opposing team off? And they're like, he'll say something and then he'll just give you kind of this duh look on top of it all. And they're like, and that infuriates other guys. And naturally heading into a series, you want to take every advantage you can get. So hopefully things kind of work out again. There's still a little bit of time before that August 2nd game. Hopefully that shakes up. That did kind of change things, I think, the way that the Wild formulated their roster that they are taking to Edmonton. They did make their final cuts. Sam Ennis, JT Brown, and Callan Addison cut from the squad. The 31-man roster includes players like Kaapo Kähkönen and Matt Robeson, so both goalies are traveling along with Stalock and Dubnyk. From forwards, you've got Gerald Mayhew, hashtag Jerry Time, one of our former guests, Nico Sturm, Nick Johnson, Kyle Rao, shout out to all of you guys who love Kyle Rao and your Lakeville Pride, or Eden Prairie Pride, rather, and Kirill Kaprizov. Also on defense, Matt Bartowski, Brendan Manel, and Louis Belpedio. So those are your guys in addition to the Wild as you know it. Fred, who excites you most out of that? I'm guessing it's a Kaprizov maybe that you're looking forward to having travel.
Meh. I mean, I think the best thing that he can do for the team is just give them like alternate things that they haven't seen before. Mm-hmm. But I mean, he's just going to be there and getting used to being there. But I mean, who really cares? He's not going to do much. I mean, Kähkönen, I mean, that's got to be the guy that everybody's watching right now. I mean, will he get the start? Will he actually be able to get in the net? I mean, that's what I want to see.
Right. Like you mentioned, Kaprizov not able to play, but he will be able to practice with the team, get it acclimated. He is still not in North America yet. He will be heading straight to Edmonton. There has been no update on how to get him over here. There's obviously visa issues and whatnot, but I do think it'll be nice to have him kind of in practice. I look forward to seeing the first bit of film from that. I'm sure the Wild will have something on their social media. I'm bummed that we didn't get to see it at camp. But I think you're right. Kakkonen, we've talked about quite a bit, or at least I have, I want to see how his game truly translates to the NHL. He was the AHL goalie of the year, looked solid. I want to see, is he your next guy, right? Is he your next go-to? I
have to ask about Sam Anis. What's going on with him? How did he look to you?
As I kind of alluded to, I think with Eriksson getting hurt, that possibly they needed somebody up the middle, right? And I think that's maybe why you're seeing Kyle Rao jump in and you're looking at moving some different things instead. Because actually the other one, Addison, I was also surprised that he cut. Sam Anis looked good. Truthfully, I didn't see it. He was with the Group A, which was most of the Wild players for the majority of camp, kind of in and out. But he looked solid. It's so tough to tell sometimes, right? Really, especially with the way things are moving during this camp as they prepare for playoffs. I think he'll get a look next season for sure. I mean, why not, right? Early on, jump in and see what he has. But yeah, I mean, I didn't pay too much attention to his game. Are you a fan? You're a big Sam Anis fan?
No, I just saw some kind of uproar from some of the online Twitter pundits who are like, oh, come on, give him a chance.
Right. Well, and that's just it. Because again, he was between him and Mayhew down in Iowa. He was a huge component of that, right? So it definitely would have been nice to see. But I think that Eriksson kind of threw things for a curveball, because if this injury is significant and keeps him out, you have to consider who you're going to be able to fill into those holes. So that'll be interesting. But the team off to Edmonton, in Edmonton now on the day of this release. Interesting players will be obviously in the bubble. They have to quarantine kind of solo for the first 4 days. So they won't be able to hang out in each other's rooms or really interact. It's kind of practice hotel, at least for those four days, which will be kind of interesting. I think that's got to be hard. As a team, I feel like you want to kind of hang out, especially when you're in a weird isolated situation anyway, but now you're really isolated.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see the other sports bubbles right now. I mean, heck, each sport has their own different rules they're trying to play by, and some of it makes sense, some of it doesn't make sense. But like the MLS, I mean, there's videos of guys who have brought RC race cars and are racing those through the hotel lobby and through hotel hallways and stuff, and setting up race courses, and then they'll put the GoPro on top of the RC car. So it's just real funny. And then you have the NBA where they have like these strict lines, but then they're able to like order food, but then the food has to come to security, and then somebody will accidentally cross the security line and have to quarantine for another 2 weeks.
And the hazmat suits come out and everyone's like sprayed down, or like Alexa suggested, power washed and hosed out.
I mean, it is just so weird.
I get it right. Again, it's uncharted waters for literally everybody and what you can do. From my understanding, I believe, or at least some of the players were under the impression that they might have some kind of restaurant availability, right? Because I don't know. And I think they were still kind of unclear. I think a lot of that information was going to be relayed to them right before they all leave. So it'll be very, very interesting to see how they navigate. I know a lot of the guys, Marcus Foligno had actually mentioned, they're all big video gamers, a lot of the young guys. So a lot of video gaming, I'm sure, will be happening as well. And, maybe some Netflix. Typical stuff that you'd expect, right? Like, I don't think that's anything going to be too unique or too crazy. It'll be trying to pass the time. And again, at the end of the day, though, their main focus will be on playing and beating Vancouver in that best of 5 series. So, I think that'll be interesting. What do you think, Fred? Who is your pick? Do you think the Wild pull it off and get out of this first round against Vancouver?
No.
Be honest. I'm always honest. I'll tell you my honest opinion.
I know you, and you have told your honest opinion too. You've gotten flack for it.
Yeah, no regrets.
I don't know. Especially covering the Wild when they had being a part of the Wild when they had their big year a few years back, and they're like, this is our best chance yet. And then they go into it, and I'm kind of the guy that you got to show me, you got to prove it. And I'm not going to believe you until you do. I mean, if you have this big history of just kind of, getting swept in the first round or not being able to find that mojo, I'm sorry. I'm not going to give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm not. But it's
just reminders, eh?
everything is so weird. That's the thing. This whole process is a big wild card. So anything can happen, and you get one hot goalie, it's changed on a dime.
I mean, and that's the important thing, and that's where I kind of stick to. I'm sorry, Wild fans. I think Vancouver ekes it out because their goaltending is in a stronger position than what the Wild have. I think you've got Markstrom there. Plus you have youth on Vancouver's side too, Elias Pettersson, along with Quinn Hughes, who you guys know is my vote for Calder. And then even if Brock Besser can turn it on and turn it up, I know he's had some ups and downs as of late, Burnsville pride there. But I just think Vancouver has that slight edge and mostly in goaltending. I mean, unless Al or Devin, whomever they choose to be the starter in that first game, unless they all of a sudden have had a complete turnaround and they are the next, big thing. I think it'll be a challenge for Minnesota. I do think it's a good matchup. They do match up better against Vancouver than maybe some people are giving them the doubt. I think they're hungry too. Again, reminder, Minnesota still carries that very large chip on their shoulder from earlier in the season when they were, expected to be so down and out. And, they've been given kind of a new breath of life here and in the ability to continue their season and to play and be a part of this. So they're definitely going to give it their all. And there's so much urgency, especially from a lot of those older players too. I mean, you're probably going to get the very best out of Mikko Koivu, even if it's on the third or fourth line, right? Yeah. And the very best from Zach Parise, who wants to put kind of all the trade rumors and everything from February behind him and say, I'm here for this team. And, you'll always get the best out of a Spurgeon and Suter and the likes of them. But it'll be interesting.
You know what the secret sauce is going to be?
What's that?
Polos and dress pants.
Oh, God. Oh, Lord. That could not be more Minnesotan if they tried. In case you guys hadn't heard, which I'm sure you did, because they're, it's funny, as media, we're excited to have hockey back and talk about it, but there's only so much that we can talk about. So a lot of it was like, hey, guys, what are you doing in the bubble? Or, hey, guys, what are you going to wear? Because the NHL said that they are not required to wear their suit and tie, which generally they do on game days. And Minnesota Wild come in with a brilliant plan. Let's wear team-issued polos with dress pants. I'm shocked they didn't go khakis. Like, I feel like that would just complete kind of this dad look or this dad vibe that they got going on.
Does the polo have to be tucked into the khakis?
I will guarantee it. I will almost guarantee it, right? Like, I don't know. I mean, I give them credit because I think you want to have that team unity as you walk in and you want to make sure everyone's dressed appropriately. Not that I would expect guys not to be. I don't think you're seeing, anyone showing up in sweats on a game day, but it just kind of, and to me, it screams very college, right? Like, I feel like a lot of the college guys are wearing, khakis and polos, and it's just, which again, though, it kind of is. You're riding on a bus now to get to your rink. It's different, but yep.
I don't know.
That just screams Minnesota Wild. I don't think any other team is doing that. Like, I haven't heard anything.
I haven't heard anything else. Everyone online is just like, what? Come on.
So I mean, lame. Marcus Foligno had a good point. He wanted to do like a 90s throwback, like team warm-ups, like
that's awesome.
That would be sweet. And think about the merchandising you could do on that, right? Like, you could sell these team warm-ups, and people would be all for it because now retro's coming back. I think that would be a lot cooler.
But the thing when it comes to like team chemistry is like, yes, there's a very big difference when you are a college player, you're not getting paid, and you're trying to build up let's do this. It's really, put our head down and really commit to this process and really commit to winning. But when you are making millions and millions of dollars, it's almost like the players have to have more fun to engage. I mean, do you find that it feels like they need to be like spark that almost boyish feeling of this is fun still?
I mean, totally. And I think we've talked about it a little bit when we talk about the hockey culture in general. It's the NHL limits a lot of the expressive, a lot of the outspoken type of fun aspect that you do want to see more from players, right? I like PK Subban, right? I like his boisterous outcry tone a little bit once in a while. He's one that comes to mind, but I think in general, hockey's kind of very strict to a sense too. Like, nope, this is the uniform. This is how we look. This is how we behave in front of people, right? We all know hockey players that certainly know how to let loose, rip, have a good time, have a lot of fun. But I think they put on such a kind of front that maybe is a little boring, and because frankly, that's what it is, right? Like, team issued polos are a little boring when, I don't know, I don't know if they're videoing all of these walk-ins anyway, or like what that exactly looks like. I do know they did release what the NHL arenas will look like for
games. I did see that, yeah.
Which is pretty sick. I got to give them credit, because that was kind of a big question, right? Like, you can't, what's the team logos? How do you, because you don't have a home. I mean, you have a home and away team, but you don't, right? Everyone's playing on the same sheet. It's 3 games on the same sheet in a day, which is a lot. A lot of players have referenced it's very much like international competition, where they'll make sure the ice is up to snuff, but at the same time, you still have 3 games being played on the same sheet, which is a lot. But anyway, I think they're going to do a great job with how that whole vibe, still kind of having that playoff atmosphere for those players, because that will be important. And no matter how often we talk about, oh, well, you can't let the no fans thing get to you, it will. Again, going back to our conversation with Foligno last week, like, he's a guy that he throws that big body hit and the crowd stands to their feet and yes, let's go. And he gets revved up and amped up, and to not have that, and not to have that fuel him in particular too, it's going to be different. It's going to be weird for them. Of course you're focused on the game at the end of it all, but you still want that playoff vibe and that playoff mentality. But I think the NHL is putting their best foot forward to try to give that, especially for the viewers at home.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like NHL on Xbox or PlayStation, the way you play those games. They have like 3-on-3 tournaments, and they have all these lights and sirens and lasers and blah blah blah, and it looks really cool and it's engaging. So it's going to feel kind of like a video game to me. But I think also the players on the bench need to up their support for the players on the ice. Like, you almost need to like fuel the players out there and be more vocal to try to replace some of that, because I mean, baseball is one of the very few big sports that have already come back a little bit. They've already had exhibition games. They've already been playing in empty stadiums and stuff. And it's just so funky. And so it's almost like your teammates need to fill that gap and that void a bit.
I think you're right. Isn't baseball doing like, and I'm sure we'll know more about this, weren't they going to do digitized like fans?
Boxes.
Yes. Right.
Fox broadcasting every time. Gosh, every time it feels
a little creepy. Speaking of computers,
Fox is always like the company that comes back and is like, we're going to try something. And everyone's like, what are you doing? Like, I mean, with golf, they have like these little like cameras that like speed around the fairways and get these really weird shots. And then baseball, we're like, we're going to have digital fans. It's like, no. I mean, it's already weird enough you have like cutouts in the seats. You don't need these digital fans out there pretending that everyone's there. It just makes things feel more sad.
Would you rather have digital fans, or would you rather have like legit cutouts?
I think the cutouts are really funny. I think they're actually really kind of cool. I mean, some guys have bought like 200 seats, so you have 200 of you in there, and then sometimes you have scattered other local athletes cutouts mixed in too. I think that's just way better.
I think it's a good way to really engage the fans, right? Because I believe fans can like purchase that, or like season ticket holders can like send in their photo or whatever. I think it's a way to monetize it too.
At the
end of the day, right?
You can't be there, but your cutout can be.
But your cutout can be, and people are crazy. They'll be all over that. So, it'll be interesting. Sports, they're coming back. We'll have more to talk on about the Vancouver series with Tom Reid. Looking forward to his insight as he gets back in the broadcast booth and how that all works for him too. It'll definitely be interesting. Before we wrap up hockey talk, I do want to talk the Kraken. Alex did not give us her insight.
I hate her forever.
I know. Never forgiven Alex. Just kidding. I mean, no surprise, right? I think that's the one that made the most sense for Seattle and just color-wise and everything like that. But what are your thoughts as a Seattleite, especially?
Former Seattleite. I think everybody knew the Kraken was going to happen. That was the one that was getting the most buzz. That was the one that sometime would get leaked, I guess, that people thought, okay, this would make sense. But it's just, there's too many memes that come out of it to me. Yeah. It's like, we're going to go to section 203 and there's the crackheads. And if you turn over your game night crack pipe and find a gold star, you get to go in the alley with crackhead Steve. It just kind of keeps going. And then all the old people are going to keep saying, let's get Kraken. Like, oh, God.
I will say, and we'll talk to Tom about this. I got in the elevator with him after camp on Friday, and that's the first thing he said. He's like, "Yep, the crack house." And it's just like, oh, yeah. Tom, that's great.
I mean, I will say the logo, super cool. The jersey.
Do you like the S? Like
I do like the S, and it's a throwback to the Seattle Metropolitans. That S is, and then they threw like the Kraken tentacle in the middle with the I. Mm-hmm. But I actually think the unis are already in the top half of the league.
I like the colors. I like I mean, there's not enough that have, so much of that blue and the different blue tones. I think that's sharp. And then the little addition of the red has that pop. I mean, it's a little similar to like a Bardown Beauties look, but whatever. I'm not going to go. No, I guess I don't hate the name as much as people did. I'm kind of surprised that so many people were very disappointed in the name. Because it's kind of like, TJ Oshie, I think, had mentioned he wanted the totems because he was born in Seattle and started his career there before he got much better here in Minnesota. But I don't know. I think it's
what I thought they should have done was I thought that they should have went to the Seattle Thunderbirds, bought the name from them, and gave them the Kraken. Like just switch. Because to me, the Thunderbirds it's like the established brand in Seattle, and it is very, very ingrained in the Seattle culture with the Native Americans there. And it would have been just a very good transition to just keep going with the Thunderbirds. And I thought their colors were really clean. But if you're in Seattle, it's always going to be blue and green.
Right. I was going to say, I'm surprised there was not as much green in the Kraken one,
they just basically went blue, didn't they?
Yep. Which again, still good, but all in all, happy that they have a name. I'm sure Alex is thrilled that like she said, doesn't have to just call them NHL Seattle anymore. And it's exciting because it's just another step forward in their process and into them joining the league. So that's it for our hockey news. Before we do let you go, I want to give another shout out to Victory Links for having us out on the course with them last week. That was so much fun. My game, I think, improved, really. As my drink count went up, I definitely got better. I
would agree. You actually were getting the ball off the ground.
Yes, right?
I was like, whoa, she got 2 beers in her, and now she's actually...
You're darn right. I relaxed finally. That's my problem. I
got worse. I got worse.
Relax. Yes, you did. But no, thank you to them. Be sure to go check out their course, obviously owned by National Sports Center in Blaine. And they've got some cool stuff up on tap at the Super Rink there too. So we'll be sure to keep you guys updated on kind of events as hockey starts to open back up in Blaine. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with Tom Reid. Stay tuned.
In addition to our presence in the Soda Stick store, we've got even more Beauties merch available in our Bardown Beauties Teespring collection. Wear a custom-designed 5-hole Bardown tank while feeding your babe in an official Beauties onesie and sipping from your Bardown Beauties coffee mug. We've got it all. Go check it out and support the Beauties.
We're back. Joining us now, your favorite radio broadcaster, part of the dynamic duo with Mr. Bob Kurtz, former Northstar and owner of one of my very favorite stops in St. Paul, Tom Reid's Hockey City Pub. Mr. Tom Reid. Tom, how are you?
I am great, Jess. Now that hockey's coming back, I certainly am excited to get this underway here, but it's been a long process along the way. But finally, the NHL and the NHLP have done a terrific job of putting this whole thing together.
I mean, how exciting is it? You were there. We were all there for the pause. I mean, there was a game the Wild were playing that day. We were preparing to move forward against the Golden Knights, and then all of a sudden it stopped. What was that? Take us back to that moment, what that was like for you.
Well, I can remember driving in from my home in Invergrove Heights, and I remember them calling me and say, don't bother coming in today for the practice. They just sent all the players home. That was a pretty good indication that things were not going to go the way we wanted them to. But at the same time, one of those situations, we hoped it would be very brief. Unfortunately, it's not been very brief, and it's really affected a lot of us, certainly around the National Hockey League, around the world, for that matter of fact. And the thing is that now that they are coming back, I think it creates some more excitement. And I really have to give a lot of credit to Gary Bettman and Bill Daly and their staff at the NHL, and with the NHLPA also. When you look at the dynamics of what they had to go through to put this whole thing together, but it's tremendous, the amount of pages and the amount of the work logistically that has to be done to protect the players and their people working in the organization, and the fans also, unfortunately, who won't be able to participate as fans in these games.
Right. But I think they're still going to make it very special for the fans. We saw them kind of unveil what that arena facility might look like and kind of how they're going to be having hockey running round the clock. How exciting is that going to be for fans to be able to tune in on TV and to listen to you on the radio as well?
Well, yeah, and we're going to have down here at the pub, I've got 46 TV, so I'm going to have lots of hockey on here all the time, but it will be exciting, and there's some new dimensions coming that I haven't even seen yet that the NHL is going to implement this year to make it more of a fan-friendly type of a game. So it will be interesting to see how that's received, and I think the amount of work that's gone into this already tells me that it's going to be something that I think the fans are going to be excited about. And certainly, I think just getting back in the broadcast booth for Bob and I being back together, I think I've seen him once since the started back on March the 12th. So it'll be interesting to get together once again with him and certainly with everybody else connected with the game.
Right. And what does that look for you guys from a broadcast standpoint? Because you guys aren't going to Edmonton, correct? You'll be stationed still here, or are you going to the bubble?
No, we're not going. We're not part of the bubble. I think the bubble is 51 people, and there's some interchangeable dynamics with that also with the medical staff and so on, the doctors and who can be in and who can't be out. But we actually will do the games out of the XL Energy Center in the studio that Kevin Fallness and his group have put together with 3 big 65-inch TVs. So we'll have a couple of different angles, which will help. But to be honest with you, Jesse, I'm sitting here the last few nights and I'm watching a game on TV and the NHL Network, and I'm watching thinking, oh my goodness, this is awfully fast. But you know what? It's a challenge for us. It's been a challenge for the league to get to this point, and I look forward to it. I really do. It's going to be interesting to see how the dynamics work out with Bob and I. I mean, we have a pretty good team when we have visual sight of the whole ice, but when you don't have sight of the whole ice, it changes it tremendously. I don't know what the back referee's doing, what's happening on the bench. Is someone laying on the ice hurt? Is there a penalty being called? No idea. So, but we'll get through it. Well, the first game, of course, will be against Colorado in a preseason game. Afternoon game, but from that point on, we get all the late starts.
Yeah, right. You're going to drink a lot of coffee during the day to be able to stay up and attentive for those games?
I'm going to be drinking something. It may be coffee.
Well, then we definitely got to tune in, right? You had mentioned, I mean, are you going to really utilize that Colorado game to practice and to figure out how that works? Watching the TV, it's so different than being there live and in action at the rink.
Well, we're going to have to. That's our only chance to really practice with this. In fact, I was talking to Kevin Fallness today, and he said, come on over and take a look at it. They've got monitors built. They even have plexiglass between Bob and I and Jim Rogers, who's one of our board operators there, and Kevin will be on the other side. So we don't know everything that's going to happen yet. It'll be kind of fly by the seat of your pants here for at least for the first couple of periods, and maybe for the entire playoff series. But the fact that we're at least able to get back into it, I know a lot of broadcasters around the league that I've talked to are pretty excited just being able to get back into it. This has really been a very difficult time, I think, for a lot of people that really didn't know what was going to happen. Is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? We heard all these different stories. It was going to be Vancouver and Las Vegas, and all of a sudden it's Toronto and Edmonton, which I think are 2 good sites. A couple of reasons. The pandemic is not near as severe in those areas as other areas. And secondly, they're dealing in Canadian dollars, which I think is about 30% cheaper than the American dollar. So that's going to help.
Well, there you go. Were you kind of always optimistic that hockey would make a return, or what were kind of your thoughts as, it was, will they, won't they, what's going to happen? What does it look like? What were you thinking? And obviously you were hoping for a return, but did you think that was going to be realistically possible?
I think it was more of a roller coaster ride. We hear one thing one day and the next day is something different. But at the end of the whole thing, I thought, no, there's no way this is going to happen. There's just too much involved with this, and I don't see how they can make it work. But you know what? Kudos to them. They have that can-do attitude. And with that in mind, they can do it, and they're going to do it if everything stays the way it is, even in the testing sites. And the thing is, the players have really jumped into it also. Donald Fair has done a great job as the executive director of the NHLPA, working with Gary. And there's one statement I heard, Jesse, that Brian Burke said, and it was, if the players don't accept this deal, what's it going to be like next year? The cap would have gone from like 81.5 down to about 60 to 65 million. Now you've got to unload a boatload of players. And some of the players you can't unload because they have no trade contracts. So it would have made all the difference in the world. But I think for the most part that they've done a great job. And I was kind of very pessimistic at first. Then I thought, you know what, it's going to happen. Then it's not going to happen. Then it is going to happen. And talking to a couple of people connected with the game, thought, boy, this is going to be tough. But kudos to everybody involved to make it work.
And you just mentioned they're getting that CBA extension, getting that approved between the players and the union, where we've seen other sports not able to do that. MLB, for instance, not able. How important that is it to secure that with the NHL and to know that there's not another, lockout imminent in the future here?
Well, the thing is, we have 2 more years of this contract and then another 4 years after that. So 6 years. And that's huge because it's going to take a couple years to build this thing back up again. It's not going to happen overnight. And we've seen where the players, have been well taken care of. I think Donald Fair's done a terrific job as their executive director. And he and Gary, as much as loggerheads made at the beginning, trying to find that territory, who's going to run this, who's going to run that. I think they've done a very admirable job of working together to make this work so everyone gets something positive out of this. There's not too many negatives. You can look at this situation right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Zach Parise brought up a really good point when we spoke with him a week or two ago. He said that he believes that this is really an opportunity for the NHL to gain some new fans. People are craving sport. They're craving live sport, and everyone knows the playoffs and no matter what realm are the most exciting part of hockey, right? So do you think that more fans are going to come on board, hopefully, given this situation?
Yeah, I would think so. I think if you talked to fans a couple of months ago, they would have said, no, there's no way it's going to happen. And, they talk to experts like me, say, oh, there's no way it's going to happen. Well, it's going to happen. So prove me wrong again, which is great. But I think it actually will draw more fans into it. And it's exciting also. The first series that Minnesota's involved in, the 3-5. You lose that first game, boy, you're all in a hole right away. So Minnesota against Vancouver is going to be a very, very telltale sign by that first game that they play against each other in Edmonton.
And you brought it up there. It is happening. First game, August 2nd against Vancouver. What do you like about the matchup? What do you not like about the matchup?
Well, I like the fact that Minnesota over the last couple of years has been a little more predominant, but not by a great deal. I think that the experience that Minnesota has as far as players who have been in the playoff picture before, many of them, and the number of games they played, hopefully will tend to give them a little bit of an advantage. But that being said, Vancouver is a very well-coached, up-and-coming team also. They've got some good young kids there, and Minnesota is going to have to be at their best. And Minnesota can't sit back. They've got to go right at it right away. That first period, those first few shifts are so important of being very, very solid and making sure you play good, solid defense, that you're not running out over the ice because your adrenaline is just making you jump all over the place. So you really have to be controlled in your emotions when you step on the ice. At the same time, you have to make sure you're doing the job that's expected of you.
Everyone was watching Kevin Fiala absolutely get on fire. The whole team as a whole before the pause was doing really well, but Kevin Fiala especially exciting and igniting some energy. Do you think he's able to sustain that and pick that back up heading into Edmonton?
Yeah, well, I've watched him. I've watched a lot of the practices so far, and I think he's done a great job. The one thing you worry about is that he's trying to be overproductive. He's trying to do too much because he wants to get back to that level he was at before. Well, it doesn't happen overnight. It took him a lot of games last year to get to that point where he was so effective for Minnesota. Would they have 7 goals and 7 assists in his last X amount of games, whatever it was? Yeah. But he was really a house on fire for the team. And I know that he and the team would like him to be in that position again, but it's going to take a few shifts, a few periods to get there.
Exactly that. How long will it take to for these players, not just the Wild, but everybody to kind of get back into that rhythm? Everybody's been at camp and like we had spoke with Dean Evison today, players are sick of playing against each other, practicing with each other. They're ready to get into game mode, but it's a whole new aspect when you're jumping into a game, and especially with something huge on the line like the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, it really is. These guys have been away from the game as far as games go for over 4 months now. Mm-hmm. So it's been a difficult transition for them, and being able to keep that mental sharpness and the physical sharpness during this whole situation has been difficult for a lot of players. There's no question about it. Eventually you start to think, oh, this isn't going to happen. It's not going to happen. All of a sudden it is going to happen. Now you got to make sure you're back in a position where you can get back into shape in a very, very quick, mentally and physically at a very quick pace here. So I think that for the most part, the players have latched onto this. I'm watching the practice, and I'm sure all the cities where they're having their training camps right now, with the 24 teams involved, are pretty happy about what's happening. And they've been very spirited. There's no question that these guys want to play. It's going to be unusual also, Jesse, not having fans in the building, pumping in the noise and different things. And But if you watch practice as much as you do and I do, even during the course of the year, they're pretty spirited in some of these practices, and tempers get up a little bit, but you don't go out there to hurt your player or to maim somebody, certainly in the practice session. But I think now that it's going to ramp it up a little bit more so once they get in that first game.
How much, we've spoken kind of at length with players and coaches about what a fan atmosphere really does create. How much do you think that does impact the playoffs heading in? I mean, we talked about guys like Marcus Foligno, who he hits that hit and the fans get up and it gets the whole team kind of going. How much does that change games like his, or even just a goalie's perspective when they get scored on and different things like that?
Yeah, when the fans are, you go to Chicago and look how raucous that crowd is in Chicago. It's great during the regular season. When you get into the playoffs, I don't think the fan base has much to do with it as to what the players' mentality is and how they get up for each and every game. You get into Game 7, you get into the playoffs, and you know what? Home ice advantage, there's not much of an advantage anymore. These teams are very evenly matched all the way through. And if you go back to 2003, when the Wild went to the conference finals, how much fun it was for not just our city, but for Vancouver also, who we beat out in that 7-game series. So it'll be interesting to see how the players react to the pumped-in noise of the fans. Even with us as broadcasters sitting back, being in a very quiet booth, and wondering where's all that noise coming from. We know a lot of the arenas now do pump in noise out of their big scoreboard to try and get the fans more engaged in their hometown team. But I'm looking forward to see how the NHL approaches all these different facets of the game.
It is. It's going to be something completely unique, right? I mean, there's nothing that would compare to this, and there's no rule book or playbook on how to acclimate to all of the newness. So it's definitely going to be very interesting. Another aspect to consider, obviously, for teams that were very injury riddled, this break is a saving grace, right? Because now you're heading into playoffs with fresh legs, healthy players. One of those being Jacob Markstrom in net for Vancouver. How much of a game changer is he going to be for Vancouver? And how do you think the Wild are going to fare against him in the crease?
I've always said when you get into playoffs, goaltending and special teams really are what drive your club to success. And I think I don't think that's going to be any different. At the same time, you don't have to be a Rhodes Scholar to figure that one out. But at the same time, when you have a very short series of just 5 games, you could be out in 10 days and gone for the next 3 months, so you don't hear from you again. Because you're going to have another training camp for those other 7 teams that didn't make the playoffs, and so they have to have their time to have to get prepared as well for the upcoming season, which will start in early December. But I think when you look at teams, and I go back to St. Louis a couple of years ago, Minnesota was so good and got beat up by the Blues, who had Jake Allen in net with 1.45 goals against average. I mean, that was
bad memories, yes, right? Bad memories.
Not for him, not for Jake or his team, but it's fun, and you can't discount any team from not winning the cup. Right now, as you pointed out a few months ago, most teams are healthy. They're in a position now that coming to the playoffs so often, you're not healthy. You got bumps and bruises, which you never hear about. And go back a couple of years ago when Jarrett Spurgeon was out with that leg injury, and you didn't have Ryan Suter on the lineup as well. When you lose guys of that caliber, it's going to hurt your hockey club a great deal. But I think with the time frame that's gone by here, I look at Dougie Hamilton in Carolina. Here's another key player that's going to help their squad. Stamkos is going to be back into it, and every day it seems like, even with the Wild watching the practice and so on, somebody, where's Dumba today? Why isn't he there? And all of a sudden he's back on the ice next day, but now it's Eric next. It's not on the ice. What's going on with him? And of course, the teams can't divulge whether it's illness or sickness or injury or anything like that right now, which I think is a good thing during this time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is. Like you mentioned, we talked about Eriksson Ek. Could be precautionary too, right? We just don't know, because they get to be a little vague with us, even more vague than they are, the general upper body, lower body. So that definitely makes it kind of interesting and intriguing a little bit. I'm curious to see.
Yeah, I'm on a need to know basis, and I don't need to know, so they don't tell me. That's how it works.
You don't get any of the insight that they don't divulge to.
No, I don't ask for it either. If they want to tell me, they will.
You had mentioned the 2003 Western Conference Finals that you were able to be a part of the broadcast team for. Was that a bigger moment for you, or do you think scoring on Ken Dryden and one of the very few goals that Ken Dryden's ever, which is better in your career?
I think the goal scoring was a little embarrassing for Ken, and certainly for me. But I think it was that series, and I can still see Andrew Burnett and see his face when he scored the final goal against Patrick Waugh, the last goal they ever gave in the NHL. But that was a fun series because we didn't expect to go that far. To beat out Colorado in 7 games that year. No one expected. Then we go to Vancouver. And if you remember, Jesse, if you look at those last few games, Minnesota was down 3-1 in the series.
Yeah.
And remember Todd Bertuzzi telling the fans, and we're not coming back here. We'll finish this up tonight. Well, you know what? Be careful what you wish for, because all of a sudden now, Game 5, 6, and 7 all went the way of Minnesota. And Game 5, you remember, was on a Monday night in Vancouver. It was Wednesday night back here, Thursday night in Vancouver, and then they had to play the Wild after eliminating the Canucks, had to play in Anaheim at 1:00 on a Saturday afternoon. It was very unfair. The league, and I'm sure they learned something by it, but our guys were totally gassed. We lost that first game in double overtime, 1-0. And the guys just were so gassed out they couldn't pick it up again.
I know, it's crazy. It's been great. We've had Wes Walls and Richard Park and Bruno on to talk about that series, and it's still the way it ignited the city of St. Paul and the state of Minnesota and really gave us a stronger, firmer grasp on being the state of hockey, right? Because we finally had this professional team to take it to kind of this foreign land. Do you think, again, going back to how different things would be, I mean, you look at Stanley Cup parades and Stanley Cup celebrations, how different will those now have to be given all of the COVID and everything, not knowing what that looks like?
Well, you're probably going to have about 50 different convertibles, one for each player. That's going to be a long parade, I can tell you that. Right. But, it will be different. But you know what? They'll adjust to what they have to do to make it work. I mean, just to be able to get into the playoffs, which Minnesota was really on the rise. If you remember also this past season, Minnesota had, 19 of their first 26 games were on the road. That's huge. And to be able to come back and as bad as it was maybe at the beginning, they were able to get back to 500 when the pause came about. But they worked hard, and I thought, the changing of the guard with Bruce Boudreau being let go and bringing in Dean Evanston, Dean did a nice job. He came in, he was 8-4 in his last 12 games with his hockey club, and I think the guys took a liking to his communication skills with them and his enthusiasm. And he was a tough player when he played a lot of years. He's coached for a lot of years, and I think there's a lot of respect for him because of that.
And, you mentioned the communication. That does seem to be such a strong point. I know Bill Guerin, every time he mentioned, talking about Dean, is the communication that Dean had with players and with everybody throughout the course of all this pause, because again, it's a weird thing. Why is that so important? And why does that make Dean such a strong, effective leader? I mean, is it just because he's kind of relatable, or is it the way that he approaches things? What makes that such a difference maker?
Coaching has changed so much through the years. When I played back in the 60s and 70s, the coach just basically told you who you're playing with and when to go on the ice. But now it's all about teaching. That's where Jacques Lemaire was so good, because he loved to teach, and the players respected him because of that. And I think Dean is one of those guys also. He enjoys the game. He understands the game. He knows it. He's played it. He's been there. At the same time, the communication factor is critical between the coach and the players amongst each other, even on the ice. With no fans now, you're going to hear a lot more language coming out of the players than you normally would hear perhaps. But at the same time, it's a tool that the players can certainly use to their advantage when you can hear things. When I played, people ask me, well, when there's so much noise in the building, how can you hear your teammates and so on? It's interesting, Jesse, and my take on it is, when there's noise in that building, when the fans are going raucous and they're crazy, you hear only the guys who are on the ice. You hear nothing else. As soon as the whistle goes, then you can hear the crowd, because play is now stopped, and now your focus has gone about what's on the ice, but what's maybe it be in the crowd. So the players are pretty adept at communicating. And it's so important to talk, for goaltenders to talk to the defenseman or vice versa, just to give you another spin on what's happening on the ice, because you can't see 360 degrees. You can only see what's your peripheral vision will pick up. But it should be a fun time. I'm looking forward to just getting that first game under our belt and how we're going to do it. But Kevin Fallness will lead the charge.
Oh, we love Kevin too. Shout out to Mr. Fallness. No, we're all excited to get that first game. Do you think?
Wait a minute. I noticed that this is a hockey thing. Why are you wearing a Twins jersey?
Because it's baseball opener. We're trying to get into,
Okay, just checking. I just want to check. That's all.
We had to make sure that we're loving all of our Minnesota sports, especially because we had to talk about other sports other than hockey when there was no hockey, right? So we're trying to get it going. Are you a baseball fan?
Yeah, I enjoy it. I enjoy watching the Twins. It's fun to go to and just sit out in the crowd and have a couple of drinks, soft drinks, or whatever you're drinking out there, but just to be a part of that. But it's fun. Sports is such an important part of our community, not just here, but throughout the world. And I can't watch any more dart tournaments on TV. I think that's just about it. I need to get back to some baseball and some hockey and some football and basketball, whatever they may have. But with 46 TVs down here, we'll make sure we've got plenty of things going on.
Was darts the weirdest thing that you watched? Because I watched like a Roomba tournament one time just for live sports.
I don't think
you watch any other interesting sports?
No, I didn't see that one at all. Was Bob Kurtz announcing it?
Yeah, he should have. We should have checked him out. That's what we could have gotten you guys in on that, or watched a guy do push-ups for 3 hours. I don't know. It was weird. Things got weird. But yes, definitely go down Reid's Hockey City Pub. All your action, food, great people. Tom's always mulling around. Obviously not during the games, won't be, but otherwise stop in and say hi to him. Thanks again for joining us, Tom. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jess.
Hey everybody, this is producer Fred. First off, thank you very much to everybody that went out and rated Bardown Beauties on all of your podcast platforms. We really, really appreciate it. Now, let's tell everybody you know. Let's tell your friends. Let's tell your mom. Let's tell your grandma. Let's tell your hockey coach. Let's grow Bardown Beauties podcast.
Thanks again to Tom for hopping on with us. I love that man. TR is just the best. I love his bar. I actually had my surprise 30th birthday party there, which was pretty sweet. That back room, and actually we had our wedding rehearsal dinner there too. I go there a lot. I'm there. I'm there a lot. Yeah,
well, it's the ex facto hockey journalist hang.
Oh God, we spent Russo, Sarah, Alexis, and Dane spent our entire trade deadline day there because we were able to get it all up on the big TV, do our work, have some delicious food. RIP salad bar right now because that was the best lunch spot. Especially, it was nice. It's right down from the X. It was a good walk even during the winter. It was never so bad.
Well, and Tom always takes care of you. Tom is like the ultimate older fellow for Minnesota hockey. He's perfect.
Oh, exactly. He's the best. And 2-for-1s at night ain't such a bad deal when the bar scene fully reopens here. But thanks to him. Great dude. Look forward to hearing him and Bob Kurtz on the broadcast as the series starts this weekend, guys. Hockey, let's go. Hopefully you guys have figured out your TV watching station, because that's my final recommendation. Figure out how you're watching hockey 24/7 starting Saturday. Right?
Yeah, I feel like you have to actually take off work. It's almost like NCAA March Madness, where you take off like 2 weeks just to watch all the games.
Exactly. I'm excited. I'm excited to see how it all turns out. I look forward to being able to talk more about this on our episode next week. So thanks as always for tuning in. Don't forget to review, rate, subscribe, all of that good stuff. We love you all. And we'll be back next week. Have a good one. Near